Welcome back to Marvelous Videos. I'm Rylan, and today we'll be looking at the top 13 werewolf TV series of all time. Halloween night might be over, but here at Marvelous Videos, we keep the spirit of Halloween alive 24/7, 365 days. And that means every day is the appropriate time for us to fawn over the supernatural, the horror, and the gruesomely dramatic. And when we dive into the supernatural, a myriad of creatures from fandoms, novels, and folklore comes to our minds. Vampires, witches, werewolves, banshees, zombies, chimeras, you name it. And, as you may already know, vampires and werewolves often rival one another for the top spot. Not gonna take sides here, but the lore with both characters are quite interesting and the content is rich. However, shows and movies with werewolves are often accompanied by a dive into the emotions of the characters themselves. You may ask why, and we have the answer for you. According to the way lycanthropy is depicted, we know that many of them are good people who turn into werewolves on the night of a full moon and struggle with animalistic instincts. After transforming back into humans, they rarely retain their memories. As a result, there is a lot of struggle within the werewolves and their psyche. They have their human side as well as their carnal side. There is always a duality, and that tug of war between the two sides of a person adds depth to their personality. As a result, the themes and stories centered around werewolves are often quite mature. Once again, that is highly possible with other creatures as well. But for today, the spotlight is on the werewolves. And for supernatural horror newbies, there are many more exciting werewolves in popular culture apart from Jacob Black and Remus Lupin. So, in this video, we're going to dive into 13 shows where werewolves run the plot. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Now, let's begin. Wolf Lake, 2001. Joining this list is another supernatural television series. Aired on CBS, Wolf Lake is about werewolves who live in the suburbs of Seattle. The series ran for 5 episodes before being cancelled until UBN aired the entire thing after a year. John Kanan is a police officer in Seattle. His fiancée Ruby gets attacked in a car and soon disappears. John looks for her and finds nothing but a severed hand. Devastated, he heads to her hometown, Wolf Lake, to investigate the matter after getting an anonymous tip. The locals in Wolf Lake are not very pumped about John and resist his arrival. It is also a place where disappearances are quite common. Sheriff Matthew Donner also turns out to be less than reliable due to his suspicious clues that lead John to all the wrong places. So John decides to stay in Wolf Lake. Not like the town isn't suspicious either. Even the soup that the sheriff serves John happens to be quite uneventful as well. John investigates the disappearance of the sheriff's daughter Sophia. However, he is kept in the dark when it comes to matters revolving around the town's history. Sophia behaves weirdly, almost like an animal. On top of that, Ruby's parents seem to have moved on from their daughter's disappearance a little too soon. Sherman Blackstone does not give out too much information about Ruby's disappearance, but John suspects that he knows a lot more. Wolf Lake isn't called Wolf Lake for nothing. Some of the residents in the town were werewolves after all, and they lived on the hill, where they enjoyed special treatment, while the regular humans did not. The plot unravels slowly with each episode, instead of exposing everything early on. The slow burn keeps the suspense alive, but it's not overwhelming either, primarily because the series had only 9 episodes, and all the events must take place within that time frame. The city politics also becomes evident to John as time goes by, but it is overshadowed by the supernatural aspects of the show. However, the city's ominous and mysterious nature, along with the way everything is presented on screen, is the selling point of the show. It is atmospheric and bizarre. Eeriness complements what you would expect from a series revolving around the dangerous creatures of the night. WolfBlood, 2012. Werewolves are popular in the teen circuit, which is why several teen television series that are supernatural in nature tend to favor werewolves in their primary plot points. However, America is not the only place that prefers this premise. British-German fantasy series WolfBlood is one such show that has enjoyed popularity and success after being co-produced by CBBC and ZDFE. WolfBlood is about 14-year-old daughter Maddie. A species called the WolfBloods exist in this story, and Maddie and her family belong to it. They are not humanoid werewolves, but they can turn into wolves at will, after a certain age of course. Basically, like the werewolves in Twilight instead of Harry Potter, Maddie undergoes several changes as her physical attributes get more and more enhanced. They are the weakest during a new moon, and as you may already know, they peak during a full moon. In the series, we get to see Maddie's journey with understanding lycanthropy. She also navigates her relationship with her parents and her friends from school. On top of that, she belongs to a community of people with the same ability as hers, and we see Maddie's relationship with them as well. She soon meets Redian, a WolfBlood who is a new arrival to the foster care. The series is less about carnal murders and more about Maddie's challenges in her day-to-day life as a WolfBlood. WolfBlood sets itself apart from the other shows about werewolves by personalizing Maddie's experience, instead of portraying werewolves as nothing but monsters with intense murderous intent. The target audience happens to be young teenagers, and the cast reflects that well. Despite being kids, the actors succeed at putting up a stellar performance. Humans being able to turn into wolves at will also helps the series stand out and helps the audience see them from an empathetic light, instead of perceiving them as antagonistic creatures. The show was written by Debbie Moon. Her writing has managed to perfectly capture the essence her characters wanted to convey in the show, adding this layer of human emotions and experiences to a show about werewolves that shows there is much more to the television shows directed towards children than mere entertainment. It is not just casual throwing in of supernatural elements to keep youngsters entertained, and in fact, has quite a bit of depth. Bitten, 2014. Canadian television series Bitten is based on women of the other world. It is a book series written by Kelly Armstrong and set in a fictional town called Stonehaven. The series was directed by Brad Turner, and it ran for 13 episodes in its first season. Similar to its adaptation, it focuses on the North American pack of werewolves. Jeremy Danvers is the leader, or rather the alpha of the pack. They are not just relatives. A formal hierarchy of power is present within the pack. There is a judge, a jury, and there are even executioners. They oversee the North American pack as well as the rogue wolves, basically the mutts. The pack remains under control, but the mutts could use some more discipline. The mutts don't engage with the pack as much, steering clear from areas like Stonehaven, and they generally keep their status as werewolves a secret. These are also rules that must be followed according to law, and not abiding by it would result in the destruction of the mutt. And with too much structure comes villainous activities, which we see in Clayton Danvers from the pack, who is so protective of its people, or rather wolves, that he finds himself to be the source of destruction for the mutts. He is also a threat to his own family, and Alina, the love of his life. According to Armstrong's books, Clayton's is much more in sync with his werewolf side than his human side. He had bit Alina and turned her into a werewolf, but she lives away from Stonehaven, trying to live a normal life as a regular human, and is the only female werewolf. However, Alina must keep her status a secret from her husband Philip, because knowledge of her being a werewolf would mean that the pack would kill Philip to maintain its secrecy. Bitten, the television series, is a loose adaptation of these books. As the books are quite popular, fans who tuned into the show found themselves to be quite disappointed by a number of changes. The book lays much more emphasis on Alina compared to the series, which primarily revolves around the pack. On top of that, Alina's personality is extremely different in the series, where she is portrayed as a glamorous socialite, whereas canonically, she is supposed to be much more of an outcast. Even though the show is an exciting watch for people who have never read the books, it can be a disappointing affair for those who have read it, as the show is just a loose adaptation and not super loyal to the source material. She-Wolf of London, 1990. American television series She-Wolf of London was produced by the Finnegan Company, MCA Television Entertainment, and HTV, in the early 1990s. The title for the show changed during the second season, which was filmed in Los Angeles. Here it was called Love and Curses, and the cast had been reduced drastically compared to the first season shot in England under the title She-Wolf. Randy Wallace is a graduate student in America. She travels abroad to Britain as a mythology student. She is supposed to be the apprentice of Professor Ian Matheson. Upon reaching Britain, she finds out that instead of being old, Ian is a young, attractive guy, and the two find themselves to be attracted to one another. However, paradise doesn't last for too long, as one day, Randy is bitten by a werewolf in the moors. On the verge of death, she is taken to the hospital, where doctors believe the attack to be a rabid wolf. She tells them that it wasn't just a regular wolf, and that something supernatural may be at play. Randy manages to survive and seeks out Ian for help. Together, they investigate the supernatural elements of the show while trying to find a cure for Randy's lycanthropic condition. He takes care and oversees her every time she transforms, and her new form acts like a magnet for other supernatural elements, such as spirit possessions, evil carnivals, a boogeyman, and other werewolves. After being confronted by zombies while in her werewolf avatar, Randy's popularity begins to grow, and gradually she finds herself on American TV with Ian, and they move to California. Ian starts to host a talk show that deals with psychic phenomena. The show has elements of comedy and keeps it lighthearted. For example, the romance shown between Randy and Ian. The show also keeps the investigation of the two at the forefront of the plot, as Randy's transformations are not given the center stage unless it's a full moon. However, the romance between them was a bit rushed. The horror aspects of the series was also graphic and gruesome. The execution is pretty good if you consider how limited the budget for the show was.
Shit! Oh shit!
The Order, 2019. The Canadian-American television series was created by Dennis Heaton. This horror drama show aired on Netflix in 2019 and enjoyed substantial amounts of popularity. The reception for the first season, both critical and commercial, was quite positive. The second season came out the next year, but unfortunately, the show was cancelled in November 2020. The premise of The Order deals with Jack Morton. He is a college student who joins a secret society called the Hermetic Order of the Blue Rose. This society deals with the occult teachings and practice of magic. Jack investigates the history of the organization, and as he goes deeper, he uncovers family secrets, revolving around a battle between the magic dark arts and werewolves. As a supernatural show, The Order is good enough to maybe not rival, but at least be mentioned in the same breath with renowned shows as The Vampire Diaries. The spiciest aspect of the show is the battle between the werewolves and the witches, which is exposed in the third episode, while the first two episodes are a lot heavier with the incidents on the college campus. However, things really take a turn for the better following the plot twist, while the humor and a good script keeps the audience quite engaged. There is quite a bit of suspense revolving around why Jack's grandfather had him enrolled in the Belgrave University, but the reason remains ambiguous. It is something the viewers have to find out for themselves as the details of this show unravel one by one. The romance between Jack and Alyssa seems to be a bit rushed, and Jack's over-flirtation turns out to be an overkill.
Bye.
However, the relationship built around them seems to be one of mutual respect. The magic users belong to a group called the Neophytes, and their conflict with the werewolves is exposed a little later than people would have liked, considering that the attention span of modern-day humans isn't exactly the longest. However, things take a turn for the better after episode 3, and then you realize why the first season was subjected to a positive reception and acclamation from critics and viewers alike. Hemlock Grove, 2013. Developed by Lee Shipman and Brian McGreevy, and produced by Eli Roth, Hemlock Grove is an American horror television series set in Hemlock Town, a fictional place in Pennsylvania. Hemlock Town is home to a series of strange events. Rumors of murders have stirred the town. There is a newcomer in town called Peter Rumenchek. He is befriended by Roman Godfrey, the heir to the wealth of the Godfrey family. Together, the two work to investigate these murders, as well as strange incidents in Hemlock Town, and at the same time, hide their dark secrets from one another. There is a clear gap between the rich and the poor in this town. due to the closing of the steel mill. The Godfrey business is the only source of employment alongside the town hospital, Hemlock Acres Hospital. However, a strange rumor states that sinister experiments are being conducted on the down low within the walls of the hospital. Following the murder of two teenage girls, 17-year-old Peter Rumenchek becomes the prime suspect. There is also another strange rumor on the fly, that Peter is indeed a werewolf.
What?
Are you a werewolf?
Now we know who your literary influences are.
He pairs up with Roman Godfrey to solve the murders, as we've already mentioned, and does not dispose his lycanthropy. Roman is also a werewolf, and the reason for the murders due to his insatiable hunger and bloodlust. In the second season, Peter's cousin Destiny and Dr. Johann Price of the Godfrey Institute climb up the ladder to be part of the main cast of the show, once they are gifted with super strength. A cult in the town wishes to eradicate the supernatural creatures that prevail there. The main characters, Peter and Roman, also struggle with their lycanthropy. Peter, whose human conscience is stronger, goes through a battle with himself as he struggles to not give in to the urge of being murderous, while Roman's hunger for power has only increased. Even though the two fight enemies, they are also in constant battle with themselves. The show's dive into the psyche of its main characters gives it more maturity thematically. Graphic scenes are quite present from time to time, as we see a werewolf digging out a human finger from the gut of a cat. To make matters more interesting, the cat was possessed. Being Human. Supernatural horror television series Being Human was based on the BBC series of the same name. Add comedy and drama to the mix in its genre department, as the show is quite thematically colorful with several elements being played all at once. Josh, Sally, and Aiden are supernatural creatures, werewolf, ghost, and vampire respectively. They're also roommates. Josh moves into an old home with Aiden. The home is haunted by Sally, a ghost. The boys befriend the ghost and sympathize with her after learning about her living situation. The first season dives into the background revolving around Sally and how she died. We also learn about how Aiden transformed from a regular human into a vampire. The werewolf, Josh, meets Nora, and the two grow into a romantic attachment with one another.
I did this to you that night.
Aiden goes on to handle all the orphan vampires after Bishop, the vampire who turned Aiden into one, dies. He also encounters his old love interest and realizes his feelings. There is focus around Aiden's internal journey. Josh and Nora, who are both werewolves, go on a mission with other werewolves to kill the Alpha, who turned Josh into a werewolf. Similar to the 1987 series Werewolf, this series follows the plot point of the curse being lifted after killing a particular werewolf. In the case of Josh, it's the one who bit him. Sally meets her mother for the first time following her death. Aiden finds out that everyone from his vampire family has been swept away after he resurfaces from a coffin after being buried alive. He faces death and must learn how to stop it. Sally meets with a witch to fix a situation involving someone from the past, while Nora and Josh take the aid from a young girl to learn on their journey to get rid of lycanthropy. Aiden finds a new love interest and meets a new vampire boss. Josh turns back to normal, and Sally comes to terms with her feelings. Being Human boasts an arsenal of great characters, which have been detrimental for the show in capturing the attention of the fans. This, along with the unique tone of the show and its ability to not shy away from showing bloodbath, makes matters all the more worthy of a watch. The Originals, 2013. Everyone has heard of the Vampire Diaries. If you were a teenager in the late 2000s to early 2010s, chances are that you have literally devoured this series. The Originals is a spin-off from that show, and it follows the life of Nicholas Mikkelsen, the vampire-werewolf overpowered hybrid from the parent show. Klaus and his family find themselves in the supernatural politics in New Orleans, French Quarter. He and his siblings, Rebecca and Elijah, take the center stage of the series. The Mikkelsen family are the first vampire family in existence, which is why they are referred to as the Originals. Klaus's one-night stand Haley ends up being pregnant with his child. The Mikkelsen siblings returned to New Orleans after 1919. They had built the French Quarter, but abandoned the place due to their father, Mikhail, a vengeful man. Klaus resolves that they had to take their quarter back from Marcel, and the only way to do that was by taking him down. At the same time, war was brewing between the werewolves, the vampires, and the witches. The life of Klaus's mystical child with Haley would not be a cakewalk, and the Mikkelsen family had to protect the child from the threats that could present itself to her. The parents of the siblings return, and an aunt threatens the life of Klaus's child. However, help isn't far behind as a new family member shows up. There is also a prophecy, one which states the downfall of the originals after being attacked by the first generation of non-original vampires. The generation had bad blood with the Mikkelsens, and for a millennium sought vengeance. There is a 5-year time skip. The Mikkelsens are faced with the new problem, one that deals with an ancient mystical menace of destruction, hell-bent on destroying anything that comes in its path. There is another 7-year time skip. Klaus's daughter Hope is now a teenager.
Hello?
Hello?
She attends a school called the Salvatore Boarding School for the Young and Gifted. The Mikkelsens try to reunite their family while facing the ancient menace. The Originals gets a strong start as an already established fan base from a super successful series helps it have a head start. However, it was unable to match up with the hype of its predecessor. But this only happened 2 years before the series premiered, following the creation of the synthetic True Blood. It was invented by Japanese scientists for vampires and eliminated their need for human blood for Shadowhunters, 2016. Cassandra Clare's The Mortal Instruments novel series is a major success. It has a lot of hype among readers of fantasy, so when Ed Decker developed Shadowhunters, fans of the series were ecstatic for this new supernatural drama. This series is about Clary Frey. On her 18th birthday, Clary learns that she is not just a regular human. She comes from a lineage of human-angel hybrids called Shadowhunters. These Shadowhunters hunt demons, but at the same time, deal with the struggle of forbidden love. Clary joins the Brooklyn Academy of Arts. As she celebrates her birthday with her best friend Simon, she sees a group of people who seem suspicious. However, nobody else can see them. She follows them and watches them fight. As the matter gets out of hand, she interferes with a blade, trying to save the people from the attacker, but believes that she has committed murder. She rushes back home with a heart full of guilt when her mother, Jocelyn, makes a life-changing revelation. She sees the same markings on her mother as those at the club and realizes that her mother was in danger. Clary is then sent through a portal to her only father figure, Luke. However, when Clary returns to her apartment, Jocelyn is missing, and the one who sent her through the portal, Dot, is now monstrous.
More than you think you do, Clary Frey.
He asks her about the Mortal Cup. However, a blonde boy from the club arrives at the nick of time and saves her. He tells her more about herself and who she really is, and she joins a group of Shadowhunters to save her mother from Valentine Morgenstern. Valentine is Clary's father and the villain. Clary joins her new world as a demon hunter and embarks upon a journey of self-discovery, uncovering more of her past and trying to understand what her future may hold. As exciting as the concept of live-action adaptations sound, very rarely they are successful in keeping the hype of the source material. So, when you watch the show as a newcomer who has never read The Mortal Instruments, you may find yourself thoroughly enjoying the content, but for the fandom, things are not as good. And to be accessible to the crowd, a lot of graphic violence from the novel was taken away, which only made the fans even more disappointed.
I just didn't know how.
Big Wolf on Campus, 1999. Big Wolf on Campus aired from 1999 to 2002. This Canadian supernatural television series is about Tommy Dawkins. Tommy is a teenage boy who was bitten by a werewolf during his senior year of high school while he was camping in the woods. He then returns to Pleasantville, his hometown. His transformations soon capture the attention of the people, but no one knows that it's Tommy, the son of the mayor, who is indeed the Pleasantville werewolf. That is, of course, until his friend Merton finds out about it. The two join hands to fight the paranormal creatures that enter Pleasantville. Unfortunately for Tommy, people consider him to be a reckless and dangerous monster, even though he just tries to help people. In fact, Tommy's twin brothers are oblivious to who the werewolf is, and they're hell-bent on hunting it down, much to Tommy's displeasure. Even Stacy, his love interest, is unaware of Tommy being a werewolf. Their relationship takes a hit due to his transformations and busy schedule, which makes it hard for him to maintain it. As season 1 ends, Stacy leaves Pleasantville for college. The werewolf who bit Tommy is an antagonist of the show, turning the series of living in Pleasantville quite unpleasant for the main character. A werewolf syndicate wishes to create other werewolves, using Tommy since he is an alpha but stands against it. A real alpha move. Tommy's new girlfriend Lori uncovers his secret and joins Tommy and Merton in fighting the paranormal.
I'm done with the JV.
However, Merton gets cursed by Medusa, and the syndicate proves to be a bigger hindrance than anticipated. Merton and Lori soon become werewolves as well, after being transformed by Tommy himself, both unintentionally. However, they are not permanent werewolves, unlike Tommy, who is unable to find a cure for his condition, because unlike them, he is a full werewolf. But as time goes by, he accepts his fate. Even though the Pleasantville werewolf is considered to be a violent, dangerous creature by the townsfolk, Tommy tries his best to maintain a personal life and make his relationship with Lori work. However, his efforts do not help him find success. And yet, as a protagonist, he is quite well written as the big wolf on campus. Werewolf, 1987. Fox Network's original show Werewolf is an American supernatural horror series from 1987 that popularized werewolves on the television screen to some extent. College student Eric Cord, played by John J. York, gets infected with lycanthropy after being attacked by his friend Ted, who is a werewolf himself. Ted has asked Eric to shoot him, as the former could not deal with his killer instinct. After Eric transforms into a werewolf, he tries to cure himself of the curse. The way to do that is by killing the evil Janos Skorzeny, the one who is the originator of his bloodline. However, things aren't as simple as hunting down the bad guy, because having killed Ted, Eric becomes a murderer with a bounty on his head. Bounty hunter Alamo Joe Rogan pursues him while he himself is on a quest to hunt down Skorzeny. Eric goes from place to place, meeting new people. He uses his werewolf avatar to hunt evildoers instead of innocent people, but his self-control was gradually getting worse, similar to that of Ted. And the only way out was by ending the curse ASAP. Then comes the plot twist. Eric learns that the real originator of this cursed bloodline is not Skorzeny, but Nicholas Remy, an even more evil and strong werewolf. However, the series ends before Eric can put an end to his curse. What's interesting about this series, compared to other portrayals of werewolves, is that here, the character can transform into werewolves without the full moon. On top of that, the concept of being able to cure the curse of lycanthropy by eliminating the originator of the bloodline is a very cool addition to the lore of werewolves, and is generally not glossed over. The rock soundtrack of the series also keeps things quite fun and hardcore. Getting to see Eric gradually unravel from his soft, benevolent side to one where he begins to succumb to his animalistic subconscious is one of the best moments in Eric's journey. Most impressive of all, the special effects in the series were quite impressive, considering the fact that it was a TV show from the 1980s. What do you think about these series? Can you think of any we missed? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to send a like if you enjoyed today's video. Till next time, take care and have a nice one.